everybody. Today we're going to talk about behaviors. I know it's a hot topic and it's a negative connotation. And when it comes to dementia and memory loss, and I had a gentleman tell me once that, my goodness, I guess they just get mean and you put them somewhere. And it broke my heart because that's not what we do. And that's not the way it ultimately has to happen. So get your notepads out because today we're going to talk about tools for behaviors. Not every behavior is negative, right? So if they're happy and they're singing, and then, is that a good behavior? Is that what we call that? It seems like we only hit the behavior word, or they get accused of having behaviors when it's negative. Well, and I just need to hit the pause button again. I like to hit that pause button and reevaluate what we're doing, because as my brain declines with dementia, I may lose my language and cognition. Guess what? And then I can't tell you what I need. And sometimes I'm in pain, I've got fear, I've got anxiety, and I need to get the point across because you're not getting it. And so when I act out or I use curse words, and then all I hear back is, oh, they're having a behavior, we need to give them something. And you guys, I'm not making this up. When I was a director of a memory care and assisted living, I would have caregivers, and you know what? It was the fault frequently of stirring up the patient by the caregiver, but I can't blame the caregiver when we typically were running them short-staffed with probably too many patients, too many responsibilities, and so they're rushing. And guess what you can't do with dementia? You can't rush them. My goodness, are you picking a fight? Let's not do that, okay? And sadly, back then, what I would see is they'd come in too fast. They get Mr. Brown with his fists up now because they've startled him, and his limbic system is saying, assault, assault, assault. I got to protect myself. And so he doesn't even have time or the brain power to process what's going on, who this is, what they're trying to accomplish, why they're bothering me, why they're touching me, and they've startled me. But my brain is saying, protect yourself at all costs. Protect yourself. Even if you got to swing, bite, kick, cuss, carry on. And we see it. But let's stop and think about who caused that. Sadly, Teepa Snow, she told me that most times we cause it. We, the care partners. Not always on purpose, guys. I am not throwing stones at you. Listen to my heart. We're just making mistakes, and we need to learn how to do it differently. Today, we're going to talk about tools for behaviors, okay? But we also have to talk about how we communicate with people living with brain change. And an example that I can think of was back in the day when I helped start a private duty company. And as the nurse on that team, I did all the admissions early on, and I wrote all the care plans. So I knew these people. And I also had my cell number available to all of the caregivers, because I never wanted any of those caregivers to be afraid or feel like they were high and dry and didn't have support. I had been, a seasoned nurse, and I had cared for lots and lots of patients and could help them even over the phone. And whether the patient was showing symptoms they were dying and they were hospice, my gosh, I remember several of those. And the poor caregiver scared out of her socks and trying to figure out what to do. Or whether it's they're experiencing some type of reaction to themselves from the patient that they don't know what's going on. And so I remember a time when a caregiver called, and she said, she's mean as a snake. And my gosh, can you talk to her? Because we were supposed to go to the store today. Not that she needs anything, but it was just their routine. Okay. The lady was wealthy, lived in a high rise. She was doing quite well, but she did have dementia. And so we did have caregivers coming in. She had 24/7 care because she almost burned the place down a couple of times, and she wasn't going to be able to stay if we didn't have 24/7 in there. So anyway, the gal calls. She goes, she's so mad at me, and can you help me? So I got on the phone and hey, Charlene, it's Teresa. Yeah, so great to hear your voice. How's that little dog? And I immediately started making small talk with her, friendly, good tone, told her who I was, and just kind of led her away from the anger spot where she was. And it was interesting. Thank goodness I was familiar with her, and I was familiar with her home, and so could relate to several things she could still relate to. But then I heard her say to the caregiver, Why did we call her? Okay. Because now she doesn't know why she's been led away from her anger. And the energy has been, I'm always talking to you about validate, de escalate, and then redirect. Well, the caregiver said, "We called her because you're so mad at me because I couldn't take you to the store today." Okay, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. And that was just training on my part with that caregiver, because what did she just do? Well, she just recreated the whole problem again, and we had led this individual away from her anger. So I had to regroup and get back in there and settle some things. But then later went back and talked to her, and I said, when we are able to validate their position, de-escalate the energy by, getting on their team and doing what they need, or like what she did, calling someone who could talk to her in a familiar way and lead her away from her anger. We don't want to lead her right back into her anger. So there was a teachable moment right then. And but they definitely would have said that she was having behaviors. And I got to tell you, when I worked in the emergency room for a long time, full-time nights, I saw people coming in, either getting medicated or having been medicated because they were having a behavior. And I just want to stop and think about, what are we really doing? Because my mom, what I saw is she used those GD words like, oh my goodness, so liberally. That was her go to when she was upset. Because, language and cognition gets damaged. And then we need to go to the emergency words. There is a place where they still keep those emergency words, and they're colorful and they can be ugly. They can have racial slur. They're frequently cuss words or ugly words. I hate to say that, but it is what it is. And guess what? It's communicating. And if it's the only way they can communicate, we have to be great detectives, and we have to figure out what they're trying to say and come alongside and quit just finger wagging them down and throwing antipsychotics at them. Okay. And so I think that's so important, because I just saw too many individuals get way over medicated. And then, my goodness, some of these seniors, you give them a dose of something like that, a big antipsychotic. I saw folks not eat for 24 to 36 hours. They were so groggy, so out of it, and they were incontinent, and it was terrible. It was terrible going through it. It was terrible coming up out of it. And we didn't really solve anything. Then they were still upset again. Well, guess what we found out? They were having a ruptured appendix. How much pain do you think that was causing at the time? Yeah. Like we're calling the doctor when it's, 2 out of 10. And this poor person now has probably been complaining and getting medicated for having a behavior for a week, but now developed a fever, got sent to the emergency room for being sick. And then we figure out what's really been the culprit all along. I've told you many times about my woman with the ingrown toenails, and the family was so upset with her, and they said she's mean as a snake. We can't do anything with her. But once I went to see her and realized what was going on, she had 10 ingrown toenails, not 1, not 2, not 3. We're talking 10. Yeah, she was a mess in pain. And so guess what? She couldn't think about getting in the shower or doing any of the things that the family was directing her to do. And they threw up their hands with great frustration. So who has to change? Yeah, we do. We do. We're dealing with someone with brain failure. It's hard. We need help. You have to recruit help. We'll talk about that on another podcast. But we have to bring in help. But we got to come alongside and join this person on the journey. And if at that moment they're upset, well, we got to join them on that journey. You've heard me tell the story about my mom. I mean, I would come in and just be eyes wide open as to what kind of mood she was going to be in and whether she was going to be in this time zone or not, because you never knew. I know people will tell you, she is a 3 out of whatever, or she's a level 5, or she's a level. You know what? Let it go. When you come in, they're going to be whatever they are. And they may be tracking real well with you. They might be looking for their parents who have been gone for 25 years. They may have a good mad going on. And do you have the skills to accept and agree and get on their team and validate their position? Well, that shouldn't have happened. My goodness, I'd be furious too. Can you do that? Can you join? Can you join them on that journey? and then de-escalate that energy and then redirect, see what's going on. You've heard me tell the story a million times about the caregivers who called me about my mom saying, "Hey, we don't know, I don't know, like all of a sudden we get her back to the bedroom to help get her to bed." Because at this point she was non-weight bearing. We had a Hoyer lift. Well, if you know anything about Hoyer lifts, they have to connect the bracket that lifts them up and puts them in their bed. You have to connect those things. And there was a canvas under her, but she was just mad and she was just using her favorite GD word. And so they called and said, "Can we give her something?" Which, you know what? I had the best caregivers in the whole world and still do now. But that is just the universal go-to. I hate to say it. It's a time saver, I guess, for some people, but we don't fix anything. We don't fix anything, especially if they've got the ingrown toenails or a ruptured appendix, gallbladder going crazy. Just because we sedate them for 12 hours and we get them out of our hair, that's not good care. Okay. So better to try and understand what the communication means. Oh, I don't want to call it a behavior. I want to just realize where they are right now on their journey, and can I join them there and be part of the solution to whatever's going on? And can I lead them back to their happy place, with the pictures of puppies and kittens that they love to look at, or the old cars or whatever else they love? Can we do that? So hit the pause button. I want you to back up. I want you to think more about your behaviors. And another situation that came up that really threw a mom into a tailspin with her kids is they didn't really know how to deal with her now that she had dementia, but they were sure they wanted to take the car away. So they just did, took the car away. Well, he was furious. She was furious. And I wouldn't have advised we did it that way. But that's what had happened. And she still was sharp enough, especially during the day, to just call the police and tell them her kids have stolen her car. They had no permission to do that. So I was called in, having worked with EMS in the area of where this lady was. I had been called in to meet with the family and see if we could come up with a better plan. And honestly, what we did in that situation, in order to win back the trust of their mom, we did bring the car back. Now, you can't apply this solution to every situation you have because every situation is different. And if you've met one person with dementia, you've met one person. So the care plans are going to be different, different, different. But in this situation, she wasn't a mechanic type person. She just wanted that car sitting in the garage. The kids were really driving her most all the time. And one of the boys disabled the car, but they gave her the keys, apologized. They reconciled the relationship so that they could still continue to love her through this as her brain declined. They would have said she was having a behavior. All right. And I just think that who causes the behaviors, circle back. Yeah, most of the time it's us. Not because we're trying to mess up or we're trying to be mean. Sometimes we just don't know. We don't know. We don't know. Listen, I'd been a nurse 30 and I got kicked out of the house with my mom by saying the wrong thing. It wasn't a mean thing or anything, but the logic can be gone, guys. It's hard to imagine that. We try and do all this explaining that just backfires on us. Better just to validate, de-escalate, and move on to a happy place. But she reacted and told me to get out of the blankety blank house. And so that is definitely what happened. So then we got to really think about one more important point before I talk to you about tools. Do they even know that they're forgetful? Do they know they're forgetful? So some of these individuals that have brain failure, they're aware. They have awareness. And honey, I'm just not. I'm just honey, don't leave me. And they want you to be with them. They're usually lonely. They're sad. They're clingy. And more and more, some of them, some depression. Okay. And then you've got the individuals on the other side of the spectrum that are, get out of my blankety blank house. I'm a millionaire and I don't need you, which is what a lady told me at her front door. And they can't see their own disease, that anosognosia. All right, we see it with bipolar, we see it with schizophrenia, we see it with more than half of our individuals living with brain failure. Okay. I've done several podcasts on it, so we won't go into it a lot here, but you kind of need to know, do they have awareness? Because it will help you on how to move forward in your care. because the person who can't see the disease, they don't need your blankety blank help. They don't want you to come in and help, okay? Yes, they may need your help and they need a shower in a big bad way, but they don't see it. They don't see it. No amount of finger wagging and correcting is gonna help. You know what you need to do? Here's the secret. Are you ready? Lean in, get your pen ready. You need to ask them for help. That's right, because they're paranoid and suspicious, never wrong, always the victim, and it's your fault anyway. So they already feel like they're much smarter than you. So can you play the game and ask them for help? And I would have to ask my mom for help. Mom, I got a blister. I need a Band-Aid. I think they're in your bathroom. Can you help me? And I'm telling you what, it worked. It worked and it worked and it worked and worked. As long as I wasn't rushing her, my tone and my body language was all in, that I genuinely needed her help. You can't fake this stuff. They will call you out, and sorry, but it will hurt your relationship if they get to the point where you have damaged the relationship to the point where you get a wedge in the relationship where they feel like they can't trust you. Yeah, you might have to step back and let someone else come in and do some of the care. And you manage it from a distance and work on reconciling that relationship. But it's hard. So I want you always working on the relationship. And if they're not in a good mood to do something, like, the day I walked in, and yes, I needed to get her washed up, get her brief changed, my mom, and I needed to get her up and get her ready for dinner. But when I walked in, she just wanted to know if her parents were there yet. And she was very serious and almost afraid. I don't know what was going on in her brain at that time, but it wasn't my job to ask questions. It was my job to validate her position. "Oh my gosh, your parents? Well, I don't know if they're here. You know what? Let me go check the driveway." What can you do to validate her position? I got on her team and I did something about it. I left the room. I didn't go look, but I came back and said, "Hey, Mama, I checked the driveway. They're not in the driveway. That little green car, right?" She goes, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." I said, "Okay, yeah, they're not here, but I got someone watching for them now." "Good, good, good," she said. Huh. And I watched things kind of go. And then I did "Oh, that's a teep of snow. Oh, hey, Mama, I got new pictures of the puppy." And it swung her right back into, "Really?" And she loved pictures of the puppy. You got to know what your person loves, whether it's, I don't know what they love. They love coins. They love people. They love cars. They love clouds. I don't know. Sunshine. What do they love? Chocolate cookies. I don't know. But you need to know. If you're going to care for someone, you need to know this person, their likes, their dislikes, what ticks them off, and what is off limits to talk about. Don't go there. We never mentioned dementia to my mom ever again. We never once said anything about her being forgetful, having dementia, none of it. Why bother? It just upset her and she didn't believe it anyway. It would just cause her to be agitated. Do we want that? No. It would cause her to have behaviors. Hate that word. So we didn't want to have behaviors. We wanted to have a relationship, and we wanted to be communicating. And as her words declined, we had to pay closer attention, and we had to communicate better, slower, more clearly, with hand motions, right? Facial expression, and on their level, maybe even pulling up a chair to sit in front of them and communicate without startling. I watched a nurse come in one day. I was sitting with a lady. She was under hospice care. She was one of my dementia folks. I'll never forget. She was getting restless. She definitely needed another dose of the morphine. Tiny little syringe. The nurse came in, and it was the craziest thing. She got close to her mouth and just jerked and squirted it in there. And I'm like, and the patient was like, "Wah," and choking and aspirating on this. I thought, what in the world? She was so afraid of this woman. And Tipo would have said, you approach, if they're in bed, they're asleep, you start at the bottom of the bed, you work your way up, you might put a hand on the knee, you talk to them in a low tone, you work your way up, okay? And you certainly, you would touch them so they knew you were there, and even instruct them on what you were going to do, and maybe you drip that medicine under their tongue. I don't know what that was. And honest, I wasn't in a class teaching either. I was there as a support person. But some folks really don't know how to care for, work with, be in the same room with people who have brain change. They're afraid of them. What? I have a good friend, Marion Kiner. She is a professor at Longworth College in Virginia, and she teaches nursing students. She's amazing. She's amazing, but she's teaching them dementia care. What? Teaching nursing students right where it needs to start, right? And she'll talk about the nursing students and how they are very timid and they're not comfortable being around people with brain change in the beginning. But by the end of her 6 weeks, they have fallen in love with the person they've been caring for, absolutely fallen in love. And many of them have then told Marion that they intend to go back and care for people in memory care, or at least in long-term care. They have fallen in love with those individuals. And they realize it's not someone you have to be afraid of. And that typically, if you do have a person who's become quite aggressive, a lot of times it can be because we've trained them up that way. We keep coming in quicker, faster, and with, more demands. We're louder, we're finger wagging. And what I saw when I was a director of memory care, and Lord knows I regret not knowing more, but I would watch a caregiver go in too fast, startle the individual, fists come up, and there's words exchanged. And then the caregiver comes out, finds another caregiver and says, I'm going to need help down there in 403 because she's mean as a snake and I'm going to need help getting her ready. And then they go in and they do what Teepa pointed out to me was forced care. And she's absolutely right. It's forced care. And that is not the way we care for people, not even the way we care for our pets. We really need to hit the pause button and think about the way we're caring for people. And if you need more training like I did, let's get more training. There's lots of free videos on my website, teresayoungstrom.com. Lots of free videos under the podcast tabs. There's 2 years worth of podcasts there waiting for you with lots of different titles and lots of different experts that we've brought on for you. But let's talk about these tools before I let you go. And here's the deal. I am going to put a link to these tools, this 2-page tool, in the show notes for you. Okay. And it's called the Start Stop tool is what it really is, because when you're caring for someone with dementia, especially those who have anosognosia and they don't see their deficit, you got to change up the way you're doing things. So let's always approach from the front. They lose peripheral vision. Consider they're wearing a scuba mask. Go there. Smile, introduce yourself. Okay. There's a little Teepa Snow technique in here because I definitely respect her as a mentor and have trained under her. Wait until they acknowledge you to move in. Wait until they acknowledge you. It might be a handshake. It might be a wave. It might be a smile. It might be a little eyebrow they raise and you're familiar with that person and they know you're there. Okay. Validate and de-escalate before we redirect them. Validate, de-escalate. Speak slowly, low tone, and with a relaxed body language. You can do that. Use either or, all right? Instead of the yes, no questions, how about either or? If you say, are you going to shower today? They sometimes come right back with no, and they might just be saying no to anything you say, not processing your words, but it's just yes you make me do something, and no, maybe you leave me the heck alone. And so they tend to just go to no. All right, so let's do either or. Were you going to wash up or get a shower? Either one of them's good. Okay, match your number of words with theirs. What? So if they're only using a couple of words to communicate, then slow down and use a couple of words. Or maybe start adding some hand signals in there, some sign language too. Okay, say I'm sorry and be sincere. Always be sincere if they become upset. Go ahead and apologize. Be a grace giver. They have brain failure, guys. Use trade me instead of taking something from them. If they're at a table and they pick up something that wouldn't be good, like maybe they pick up the scissors or maybe it's a sharp knife that got left in their reach, you might get a bowl of grapes and say, oh, trade me. And you take the knife and give them the bowl of grapes. Instead of running up and jerking these items out of their hand, which let me tell you, you want to damage a relationship, you do plenty of that. Oh my word. That just gets them so furious. And then we say they're having behaviors. help me. Give constant reassurance and encouragement. But we got to stop doing some things. We got to stop startling these folks. We got to stop correcting these folks. We got to stop arguing about anything. You know what? I let them be right. I don't care. Chances are they don't have short-term memory and they're not going to remember anyway. But in that moment, we're getting along, right? We're getting along and it's okay. Stop using your logic, okay? Stop lecturing. Stop saying, remember when? Okay, those points are off limits. Stop saying, why can't you? Stop saying, no, 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 no. Don't you, what, don't you do that? Okay, they're not children. I know I've had people say, oh, you just treat them like children. No, these are adults. These are seasoned adults who have led incredible lives, done incredible things, probably raised incredible children, had incredible careers. And so we don't go and treat them like children. They're adults and they deserve all of our respect. I'm very serious about that. Yeah. Now, does it mean I might change how I communicate or what I communicate about? Like, I try not to have the news on anymore when I'm with someone. I'm going to put on maybe something that's enjoyable, but it, I mean, if they like a baseball game or something like that, maybe we put some sports on. Maybe we put a music show on. Maybe we put a musical, but it can be a nature show. Yay. Or maybe just some old classics that they may enjoy. But think about what you're doing. Stop embarrassing them. Stop asking lots of questions. Stop using the yes, no questions because I already told you they're going to say no. And then stop trying to reorient them to your world. This is a great tool. I found myself when I was counseling with families saying these things over and over and over and over again. And finally, I wrote them down. And so now it's a tool that you can have access to. I will put this in the show notes for you. Okay, hopefully. Since you stayed on till the very end, you know that tool is going to be there for you. So I'm Teresa Youngstrom. I hope that you understand behaviors are a form of communication. It can mean pain, fear, anxiety. It can mean they're upset. But you can, with practice, with training, you can get them to put their fists down. Okay? You can quit asking them questions and asking them for help. You can start giving a compliment as soon as you come in with a smile, with a genuineness, or bring them a gift, a small gift or something. Bring the smile first before you notice that their clothes are dirty or there's food everywhere and start hollering about that stuff. Okay. It's brain failure. And so I hope that you will like this. I hope you'll subscribe to the channel. And more than anything, let's share so we can get this information out there. Behaviors aren't the end of the world, but I feel like we use that word inappropriately when it comes to people living with brain change. We need to be aware when we come in to see them if they're tracking with us. Are they back in time? Are they happy? Or they have a good mad going on that we have to validate, de-escalate, and redirect before we can get on with what we came there to do. Hate to say it's not about you. I know it's not about me for sure. And we need to love these people for this season when they need our extra help. It's a season. It's not a lifetime. It's a season. And I just pray that if the tables were turned and they were caring for you, that they would take this advice and they would come alongside and join you on your journey as you progress with your brain declining. All right. I'm Teresa Youngstrom. You got this.